Hi there. This video is going to focus on the pages post type in WordPress. So as you can see on my screen here, I'm just in the back end of WordPress at the moment. If I was to go into the pages post type here, this is where we would add our sort of standard pages to the intranet. So as I've mentioned in other training sessions and on the services video, what we do is we do split things down for you ever so slightly, just so it's a bit more manageable for you in the back end. So although every page on a website and an intranet is technically a page, essentially what we want to do is we just want to split it down further so it's a bit more manageable for you guys to deal with. So things in the pages post type, consider, you've got the likes of what you can see on screen here, so the likes of your accessibility statement, campaigns, your kind of top level pages, so even your main events page. If I scroll down a little bit more, there's other bits of information that I usually set as pages. So things like clinical boards, our trust, all kinds of different pages that are available on the intranet. So this is all determined based off the post type. So as I've mentioned, if you are creating some services or events, they would be done in their own post type, but anything else is usually in pages, again, other than the likes of news. So if I just go into a page, I'm going to create an example page for you. So if we put an example page as a title, you'll notice again that in WordPress things are very, very similar. So regardless of where you are, whether or not you're adding a page, you're adding a service or an event, the editing experience itself is very similar. So what we can do is come into the intranet, wherever we are, news, services, pages, and the editor is going to look very much the same. So we've added our title as the example page. Now, your options are you can either start manually typing out your content if that's something you feel you need to do. Alternatively, if you've got your content, saved in a different document, you're pulling it over from somewhere else, you can copy and paste that into WordPress. Now, the only thing to be aware of if you're doing that is that sometimes WordPress will do its best to make sure that it's formatting things correctly. So it might be that sometimes you've pulled it over and you've noticed that, in your document, you've created headings and bulleted lists and that kind of thing, whereas WordPress might make it look like it's done that, but essentially it's not really done the work that it's supposed to have done. So I always recommend that if you are pulling over content from somewhere else, just double check the likes of your headings and your bulleted lists and things like that to make sure that they are actually formatted in the way that we expect, rather than it just being that it's pulled it over as bold text and it's added the little buttons as full stops instead. So there's little things for you to just check out when you do that. Similarly to any other page and post type, you have all the different blocks available on the editing screen. So you can see that we've opened up the block list here, and there are tons of different blocks for you to be able to choose from. Usually blocks are there to break up your content. So it could be that you've got anything from, important information that you feel trust members need to know. That can be split up, especially if you've got quite a long page of content. It could be that you decide that there's an important bit of information that belongs in a panel block, which, as you can see now, is bringing the whiter background with the panel. You can add a heading and some content, and you're just breaking up your content a little bit further. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go onto the Trust website, the Trust intranet, and I'm going to go into Get Involved, and I'm going to look at a page. If I go into our Trust, try to find some information. So I'm just pulling over, as an example, some content, and I'm going to pop all this content into my new content page. You can see I'm just copying and pasting everything at the minute. And because we're going from WordPress to WordPress, it is going to format it for me correctly. However, I'm just going to show you some examples of things that we can do to break up your content. So just because we have pulled over our content doesn't mean that we have to keep it in this particular format. It could be that you do decide that certain bits of information do need pulling out. You can hover over the bit of information that you need to pull out. You can remove it, and you can either / to start typing in a block, or you can use the full block screen that we saw before to determine which block you want to use. So if I go for an insert text block, I'm then going to just paste my content straight back in there, and you can see that the only difference is we've got this blue margin down the side. So it's just breaking up that paragraph in particular, and it's going to catch the user's eye. So again, anything that you feel is important that people need to know, rather than just skimming through the content and potentially missing it, they're going to be able to see it using a different block. I'm going to just go back. So if there's anything that you've done that you're not quite sure of and you want to go back to the original setting, you just want to press the back button up at the top here. And you'll see now what's happened is it's brought my paragraph back to where it belongs. Alternatively, it might be that you've come in and you're doing some editing and you've decided this particular paragraph here doesn't actually belong there. It should be either at the very top of the page or at the very bottom. You hover over the section that you want to move around, and you can use these little arrows here to move things around to where you want them to go. Similarly, if you are linking things like other websites, telephone numbers, email addresses, all you would need to do is hover over the piece of text that you want to link. So as an example, I've just picked one out of random here, but this reduces. I'm going to click the little link icon. And if I am popping in a telephone number, I'm going to put TEL, and then I'm going to paste in the telephone number into there. So that needs to be something that happens. You can't just put TEL and a colon. You have to paste in the telephone number. Then when you click that, that's now turned my text blue and underlined to indicate that that's now linked. For you to remove a link, you can just hover over the text again and then unclick the link button. If it was then going to be an email address, you would put mail to with a colon, and then again you'd paste in the telephone number and it would then link that for us. If it's going to be another website, so I'm just going to pull over this URL just to show you. So rather than using things like the buttons or different visual elements to add links, you can always just add a link in the text by clicking the link icon, pasting in your URL. So that now means that users can click on that link and that's going to take them to another place, whether it's on the intranet itself, on the Trust website, or an external website. Once you've done everything in your page and you're happy with how it is formatted, so it might be that you look through this and you think, actually, this refresher should be a H2, so you can move the sort of sizes of the headings around just by being in the block editor. You don't have to delete anything and then re-add it. You're happy with the way that everything is formatted. You want to go back to your page settings, and you'll see that we've got all these different settings here, which are, again, very similar to the other post types. The only difference being really is that in the likes of your services and maybe your news and events, when you scroll down this settings bar down the side, you probably have more what we call taxonomies. So these are the things that create the filter categories. So news, there might be different filters in there. It could be trust news, it could be department news. Same with services. It could be that it's linking to different departments and things like that, different hospitals. Pages doesn't necessarily do that same thing because people aren't going to filter through the pages, they're just going to filter through the services, the news, etc. So you don't really have those taxonomies, as we call them, available in the pages post type. But again, anything that you need to do here, you can do in the settings. So again, add in an excerpt. So it might be that if I'm, again, just copying and pasting some content, I want to make sure that I've got an excerpt in place. I can do that just by clicking into the excerpt box. Similarly, if I wanted to add a featured image, I can do that just by clicking this button. You can also then decide whereabouts this brand new page wants to sit on the intranet. So it could be that you decide that the parent page of this should be get involved. So you can start to type in that page, click it, and then you can put number 3. So essentially what would happen is if I was to publish this, it's going to sit under the get involved section on the intranet, and it's going to be the 3rd tile that we see here. So you can change the order of things around as well in the page attribute section, and you can also set a review date. So review dates, again, this is something that you guys in the trust will determine internally, but we usually give the example of the likes of your on your trust website is a great example. So any patient information, we tend to recommend that a review date is set on that, because if it's clinical information, then it might be that it's updated over time. So by setting a review date, if you're the author of this page, you're going to receive a notification a little bit later down the line to let you know that a page is up for review. If there's no content changes that need making, you would just then change the review date to a later date, or you can then come in and make any necessary changes. Now that we're happy with our page, we can then just simply publish our page and it's going to be live. So it's going to be available where you decide to set it. And then that's very much it. Now, the only other thing I did want to mention is this part here, that's the page links to. So essentially what this is if we decided, if I just scrap all this content just to make it a little bit more easier to understand, it might be that you decide that as an organisation on the intranet, we do have the likes of the contact page. So we've got the contact page here. We know that there's going to be contact information on here. However, under Get Involved, we think there should be a tile that says Get in Touch, as an example. So rather than you duplicating all your information and having to make sure that if anything changes, like email addresses, telephone numbers, if anything was to change, you don't have to think to yourself, right, we know we've got 5 different versions of the contact page on our intranet. You can set what we call a hot link page, which would mean that if we did create this tile that says Get in Touch under Get Involved, then it's going to actually take us straight to that contact page. The way for us to do that is if you find the page that you're looking for, so if I go back to the contact page, I'm just going to copy and paste that URL. I'm then going to create the page in WordPress called Get in Touch. Rather than me then adding all the content in here, I'm just going to go into Page Links tool and I'm going to click the custom URL button and I'm going to paste in my original contact URL. The next thing I'm going to do is just make sure that my parent attribute is set up as well. So we know that this tile is going to say Get in Touch and it's going to sit under Get Involved and it's going to be the third tile that we see on that screen. I am just going to publish this as an example. I will move it to the bin in a moment. So what would then happen is if I come back to the Get Involved page, I can see that there's now the tile that says Get in Touch. When I click into that tile, it's actually going to take me to the contact page. So you're just removing the sort of barrier that if any trust information was to change, that you're not having to go in and change the telephone number here and there to, to make sure that all that information is up to date. Should you ever need to, you can either just switch the page to draft or completely move it to the bin, which I'm going to do before I forget. That's very much everything with the Pages post type. If you do have any questions about that, then please feel free to get in touch with me and I'd be more than happy to help. Otherwise, thank you very much.